Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister of Climate Change, Senator Wong. Minister, the Paris Agreement's central aim is to strengthen global response to the threat of climate change. It is imperative that Australia's commitments and policies align with these goals. A watered-down new vehicle emissions standard will have significant implications for Australia's ability to meet these targets. Today we read that Ministers King and Bowen will be unveiling a softened new vehicle efficiency standard. The original standard was a goal of 60% reduction of new car emissions by 2029. Is the Minister able to specify the revised emission reduction target for new vehicles by the year 2030?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator, and I appreciate the question. And you are certainly correct in outlining the way in which a trajectory to net zero requires a contribution from all parts of the economy. And if I may congratulate you on actually dealing with the reality of the policy challenge that the country faces, the economic transition the country faces, which is in stark contrast to what occurred under the previous government over 9 years. It is true that when you have less abatement from one sector, it does require more abatement from another sector. Having said that, the ministers have obviously had to take into account the engagement with industry, the engagement with stakeholder representatives in making the decision about some revisions or amendments to the policy which was proposed. And I understand, although I wasn't able to see it, that the ministers did announce that prior to question time, and that included recategorising some four-wheel drive from passenger to light commercial vehicle, smoothing the emissions trajectory for light commercial vehicles, which reflects the adjustments announced by the United States to its vehicle standards, and smooths the transition for utes, vans and others, adjusting emissions limits and staging implementation in partnership with industry. So the standard will commence in January 25, but manufacturers will not begin earning credits or penalties until after 1 July 25. You ask a very good question, which is about the data as to projected abatement as a consequence of this decision compared to the previous standard. I don't have that information in the brief that's been provided to me, but it's a reasonable question. I'll take advice on it.
The time for responding has expired. Senator Van, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. And the Minister might need to take this one on advice too. How do the adjustments to the NVES, how do they compare to the old one? What is the new one compared to the old one? And you may want to take that on notice.
Thank you, Senator Van. Minister.
Well, I can go through what was publicly said about some of the changes. As I said, because there's a lot of discussion about four-wheel drives, there was a recategorisation of a limited number of four-wheel drives from passenger car to light commercial vehicle. This includes models such as the Land Cruiser and the Nissan Patrol. This acknowledges that some off-road wagons use similar ladder frame chassis and need comparable towing capacity above 3 tonnes to dual-cab utes. There's a smoothing of the emissions trajectory for light commercial vehicles. As you might recall, Senator, I think it was yesterday, I was asked about, I think by Senator McKenzie, about the changes in the US to the US EPA's vehicle standard. This change reflects that. There was an adjustment to the weight-based relative emissions limits, which is known as the break point, which recognises that heavier vehicles emit more, and there was staged implementation. The cumulative abatement, I'm advised in the fact sheet, is 20 million tonnes to 2030 and 80 million to 2035.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Van, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Considering the urgency of addressing climate change and the role of diplomatic leadership in fostering international collaboration, how does the government anticipate the adjustments to the NVES will affect Australia's diplomatic relations, specifically concerning our Pacific Island neighbours and other nations that are exceedingly susceptible to the impacts of climate change?
Thank you, Senator Van. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. Well, it is true that climate change is the one the first priority of Pacific Island nations, and and I had the opportunity today to meet with the Deputy Prime Minister of Vanuatu, and that was a point he again made. And you're right, and to identify it as an issue. There's no change to our overall target. Obviously, what we are looking at is how each sector can contribute to the targets we have announced and to targets that we will be announcing down the track in accordance with the Paris Agreement. What I would say is this model will deliver $95 billion in fuel savings to Australians by 2050. It will deliver more choice in low and zero emissions vehicles. It will deliver cumulative abatement of, as I said, 20 million tonnes to 2030, 80 million tonnes to 2035 and 321 million tonnes by 2050. It will reduce emissions intensity for new...
Thank you, Minister. The time for responding has expired.